She can't subscribe. She is the channel. Hello.
Are we live?
Okay. Yeah, we are. We know we're a little early, but we thought we could get everybody notified that we are going live and get our people happening.
People's phones can start dinging.
Yeah.
Then they'll know.
Oh, I gotta go on break. Sorry, guys. Gotta go.
And Ed, it gives us just
There
a couple. Ooh, that's my bathroom break.
Right?
Although today's Veterans Day, so I wonder if people are
How
home.
many? Yeah, maybe.
Happy
Yeah.
Veterans Day for those of you guys that are
Yes.
veterans.
Yes.
We have quite a few.
We're gonna review the last book we read. We're gonna review the
Great Alone
Great Alone.
by Kristen Hanna.
Yeah.
And I'm going to leave you alone
Mhm.
Because she wants to
I didn't
finish it.
She's going to stay with us for the first couple of minutes. While
I
we talk
really
just a
like
little
it,
bit.
but
She's gonna
I
leave
gotta
when the
finish it.
spoilers come out.
Yeah, I don't want to hear.
Lots of spoilers.
So good.
Yeah, because I have some insider information that I want to share.
I'm
Oh,
excited.
is it something I can stay in here?
Oh, yeah,
or-
it's about
okay.
Kristen Hanna.
Oh, okay, good. Okay,
You may already know, but
probably not.
I just have
Oh, what was the one we read as a group before?
women Christians?
No. The Secret Life of Addie LaRue
Oh yeah,
was
yeah.
last month's read.
Yeah.
And you know what I found out about that? I don't know. Is there a question there about that? But and I'm probably
Yeah, Margaret's
interrupting you.
asking
But
us
do you know what I found out about that? You know, on that list of the 100 top most influential or top books of the, I think it was of like the first 25 years. It was substantial. It wasn't just last year's books. It was like for the first 25 so far of this millennial, I think was what they said. Addie LaRue was on that list.
Dude, I
Wow.
still can't get into that book.
I haven't finished it yet
Man.
either.
I'm not sure.
It is a weird book. I'm not saying that I didn't give it a 5 either. I mean, I think it was just weird the way that it was written.
Mhm.
I enjoyed it just because I think that for me, I get in a reading
Funk.
rut. You know, same thing. It's like, what day was it last week? I didn't have a single thing in my queue. What did I do? I went and looked for who was
Do you
it?
look up an author? And then
Yes.
just pick something you haven't seen
Yes. It's like, oh, there's 3. I have 3 books down my queue, all by the same author, because that's what thriller books.
before?
Mm.
Thrillers, you know,
Just
just
it up a
murder,
little bit.
murder mystery. Somebody's dead. We don't know yet who did it. We won't know till the very last minute, and then she's going to change it again.
It's good heart health. Make
It
sure
is,
your
I
little
know,
beater
yeah.
keeps on beating.
I know.
Exercise.
I know. I
When your
even with-
doctor asks, what do you do for
I
exercise?
know.
I listen to
read.
thriller books.
Yes.
Murder mysteries.
I don't like to sweat.
Yeah, that's right. No squats.
You know,
Unless I'm squatting.
looking at us,
Are we all?
we're all
different.
gray.
Because of our
Yeah.
weather.
Yeah, I was just going to say we are dressed for the weather.
It's been like
today.
misty
Little
rainy for
gray.
4 days.
I was going to say so many shades of gray, but you know, that's,
That's a whole other book.
That's a whole other book.
Not when we'll be discussing.
Not one for us.
Here.
No.
No, there's very little. Of that
We're
that
all
we can
cold
discuss.
and frigid here. What time
I
is
was
it?
gonna wear a
Is
taupe
that my-
shirt.
Should I leave now?
I was gonna wear a
No.
taupe shirt that says I don't do winter, but I was already hot before I left my house. Like I gotta change
Oh.
my shirt.
Yeah, you
It's more of a
do
sweater.
the cold better than
Mm-hmm.
most. I
It's only
think.
so
I
many
am
clothes you
cold
can
from
take off.
November 1st until March 1st.
Yeah.
Oh, you're probably cold still through March.
I was gonna say at
Like
least
mid-April.
maybe April.
Yeah.
You didn't get then.
Still cold.
We were laughing because Brianna doesn't answer my texts on the weekend.
My
So
phone
you didn't,
doesn't
so
do
you didn't get
anything.
that funny little thing that I sent you about it was like 4 old dads and the granddaughter that they were babysitting touched the thermostat.
No.
Oh my god, it was so funny. I laughed and laughed because that's our house. It's like, you know,
Their house is toasty.
it's warm. It's warm. Anyway, it was kind of funny. Anyway, really funny.
It was good.
All right, is it 11?
Yes.
All right.
Okay. So a lot of you guys had asked for when we review the book to read like the back of the book before we talk about it, just in case you haven't read it. It's on your to be read list, or you want to know about it before you spend the time to read it, listen to it, whatever. Which
To know what are we
Yeah, I
reading, what are
totally
we
get.
reviewing, and it's funny how many of you guys say,
you just do
I want to
it.
listen to you first, and then I'll decide if I'm going to read it. And I'm kind
get
of
it.
okay with that. And the other thing too that we need to say is that every once in a while somebody just like finds us because
Oh, sure.
it says book review and it says the title. So if you don't know who we are, we're a mother-daughter shipping manager trio, and we own a quilt shop in Central Washington State. We've been here as quilters for over 25 years, and we just found that we all love to read, and our viewers love to read, and our other quilters love to read. And so we started swapping and sharing what's in my next best read. And so we sort of started with this group. And so now we have a newsletter on our website, and every single book that we read is suggested by viewers that have pretty much the same demographic as us, I think. I mean, this is kind of the, I find that we don't like things that have a whole lot of romance, whatever. I don't need to know about that. And not a whole lot of profanity. And we seem to kind of like a lot of historical fiction kind of stuff. But anyway, so that's kind of what we tend to, and we vote on it, and then most of us read all 4 of them. And so the book that we're reviewing that we've all read, well, Tracy's going to give us a minute, is The Great Alone. We are Kristen Hanna fans.
Love her.
All right. So tell us
Okay, let me read the back of the book for you. So, Alaska, 1974. Ernst Albright came home from the Vietnam War, a changed and volatile man. When he loses yet another job, he makes the impulsive decision to move his wife and daughter north, where they will live off the grid in America's last true frontier. Cora will do anything for the man she loves, even if means following him into the unknown. 13-year-old Lenny, caught in the riptide of her parents' passionate, stormy relationship, has little choice but to go along, daring to hope this new land promises her family a better future. In a wild, remote corner of Alaska, the Albrights find a fiercely independent community of strong men and even stronger women. The long, sunlit days and the generosity of the locals make up for the newcomers' lack of preparation and dwindling resources. But as winter approaches, the darkness descends. Ernst's fragile mental state deteriorates. Soon the perils outside pale in comparison to threats from within. In their small cabin, covered in snow, blanketed in 18 hours of night, Lenny and her mother learn the terrible truth. They are not on their own. Oh, they are on their own.
Are on their own.
Are on their own.
Yeah. All right.
So
we'll talk for just a moment before she leaves. But I want to tell you something about Kristen Hanna. So I think we've read quite a few. I think I have read all of her books. And as a book group, I think we have reviewed 3, because I think we did The Women, we did The Great Alone, we did.
I don't know if we've read.
Maybe we didn't
The
do
Women.
The Women.
Because The Women is on,
all of us
has
have
been on
read
your
it.
top 10. But I think everyone has,
Anyway,
Kristen Hanna fans.
Oh my gosh, fantastic. So kind of an interesting thing about her, she's from Washington State. And she said that, so there's I think it's called Goodreads. I think it's an online, and you can sign up to be able to join live their book reviews. And so I did because I read The Great Alone months ago. Before it was even one that was suggested. And I remember thinking, oh yeah, that one really was a good one. And so I watched it quite some time ago, but Kristen Hanna said that, because they asked, one of the questions they asked her in this was, where do you get the ideas for your books? And they all seem to be kind of so different. And she said that she does have a formula, and she really likes to write about strong women and women that kind of defy all odds and they make it through, and I think that that's true of her. She is was a lawyer. Now, of course,
that's why she's so eloquent with words. Yes. She knows so many more than
the rest of us. And
who needs a thesaurus?
Yes. So she is a lawyer. But she said the interesting thing is that they were originally from, I think, I'm going to get this part wrong. Maybe it was Northern California, maybe Arizona. She was from somewhere, and her dad in the 70s, that this was almost not like a true story for her, but she said it was kind of a thing with her. And her dad said he's had it with society. He'd had it with all of this stuff going on, and he was going to take his family and head to the hills. So they loaded everybody up in the
van.
What were those?
Station wagon.
Station wagon. No, not vans back then. Station wagon. They took off, and they visited and stayed in 16 different communities looking for
the right fit.
Wow. And guess what it was? Port Angeles, Washington.
Oh wow, that's
Such
the
a
most
really spot.
beautiful,
Yeah.
most serene,
Gorgeous. Love that
most that whole idea of your neighbor is part of your extended family.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
so she said that some of this stuff she could really draw on, what was normal for her, and she loves Alaska. So anyway, so I thought that was kind of interesting. And her that was something else that I wrote down. Her favorite line or whatever, her favorite thing about the book was that line about I think it's Large Marge, Big Cora. What's her name?
Large Marge.
Large
I love
Marge.
her.
Large Marge said, oh yeah, Cora was the mom. Large Marge said that everybody in Alaska is either running from or hiding from, running from. What was
I think you wrote it in one of your questions.
People are either running to something or running away from something.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that was kind of her whole theme for it. So anyway, all right.
Okay.
So we're going to excuse Tracy because we're going to do some spoilers.
Now while I'm up
Some
there.
spoilers.
All right. See y'all.
So yeah, time for spoilers if you haven't. So it's kind of a funny thing. I got information from Rose, my friend Rose Clearwater from Oregon, and from Allie McCullough from South Carolina. I get it wrong all the time. I always say I can't remember if she's from North Carolina. There's so many Carolinas. I can't keep them all straight. But she
Does it
told me
offend
how to
you?
remember.
Does it offend you guys if we get now
I
North
hope it
Dakota, South
doesn't.
Dakota, or North Carolina?
And aren't there a couple of
Backwards?
Virginias?
There's some Virginians. I don't know.
I
Does it
hope
bother
not.
you guys if us,
I
Westerners
hope-
get it wrong?
I hope not. And you know what it is? It's just because I just can't remember. It's not because I don't care.
Right, right.
It's not a
Right.
lack of respect. It's a lack of brain cells. Is all that it is. But now I feel like I'll always get it right. She's Grandma Sassy from South Carolina.
Oh, yeah. There's
So
a nice
that was her little hint of Sassy from South Carolina, because there was a book that I was just reading about Edisto Beach.
Oh, yeah.
And so we chatted a bunch about that. But anyway, so I heard from these two, and it's kind of interesting because Rose said she didn't really like it. And she said that she didn't know if she was going to recommend it. She gives her daughter all of her books, and she was not going to give her daughter this one because of the sadness. And I'll tell you what, I told her that I didn't think that a lot of people would disagree with that. I did think, in fact, it was sad. It was very hard to read because there's a couple of components about the book. And you could kind of tell from the back of the book that there were issues, that the dad had some, not just maybe some post-war trauma, but I think he probably had a little bit of mental illness to begin with.
We all
And he
know
was
a
super
Vietnam
unstable.
vet, who came home
Right on
the
the
way
edge.
they were treated, and there was no help back then.
Yeah.
So I think we all have that person's like, yeah.
We could picture somebody like that. And I have somebody like that in my immediate family, not Jordan. Not Vietnam vet, but somebody in my immediate family that has that same sort of issue, mental health issue. And one other thing I want to mention, and we'll kind of get into this a little bit later where we talk about the year, is that I think what happens is we all know that person in our life, in our neighborhood, that is just a little bit wacko, has just strange little ideas that don't fit with the rest of society, and just sort of strange things. And that was okay because there was always that crazy lady on the corner, and it kind of didn't matter. And back in the 70s, that was kind of the way it was. Now it's a little bit different for us because we have the internet. Right. So that crazy person on the corner can find a community of thousands of people that believe the same way that they believe.
Absolutely.
And there is power in those numbers, and weird things can happen, and it becomes something, these
bigger than
radical, weird things that we all try to avoid. I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to see that on the news. I don't want to click on it. I don't care about that. I think it's just weird, and we can kind of ignore it. Back then in the 70s, we didn't have that. And so I think that a lot of those people were sort of lost in the fiber a little bit, but the dad was able to find somebody who also had weird, radical, strange ideas. And it just gave him this power.
The fuel to feed his fire.
That was dangerous. Yeah.
So I noticed that right off the bat, that him befriending that other, I can't remember their names.
What was his name?
But that those family members is that old man, crazy. Yeah. What they call him. Mad something.
Yeah.
That helped. At least he had a wife.
Fuel.
Yeah. At least he had a wife that he had listened to. But that neighbor really fueled those thoughts and those conspiracies that just fueled this, downward spiral. And I think definitely the company you keep, it definitely shows.
And I think that the other thing with Rose in particular is that mental illness is the difficult thing. And to Cora, come on. I have a hard time with moms that do not put their kids first. I'm not saying that I don't understand that kind of love and devotion. And if I just stick with them and I can help him through this, but, at what cost? And we know what cost, with the book because of the way that the book, goes through. And so I think Cora and all of that abuse makes it kind of difficult. But so I do think that it was not a feel good book. But I do think that the other thing too is that sort of thing truly exists, and
even now,
and when we are reading historical fiction books, and we read about, I don't know why we read so many things about World War II. We were talking about that a couple of times ago.
Yeah,
horrifying stuff, but things that are, I don't know if interesting is the right word, but things that you just like. Oh,
well, I also think you take a different view from it. Not necessarily what we were taught in school in the history books reread, but someone else's history of how Germany sees it, how the UK saw it. And it's like, well, I didn't know anything about that. I had no idea. So I think there is a whole lot of learning still to be had.
And I think that whole understanding too of why post-war counseling is so important for our vets. And isn't it interesting that here on Veterans Days, when we're doing this, and to talk about how it could have been different for him if he would have had a little bit more help.
A little help.
And
I do think
support system.
Knowing it was Vietnam War, we didn't have to, Kristen left out all of the things we know. There was no flashbacks for him. It wasn't really about Ernst.
No.
Ernst was definitely a second, third part character. And I found it fascinating that Lenny didn't even know how bad it was. She knew mom and dad fought. Dad had good days and bad days. And mom always said, I wish you would have known him before the war. She always said that, but she hadn't realized until Alaska that he hit her. And so I find that also she really did try to protect her as much as she could. But once you're isolated, I think it's harder to hide. There is no going to school and going to work, and you work the farm, work the land, and you see things that you didn't realize. And now being this teenage girl, you know a whole lot more than just what mom says. But
let's look at some of the comments here for a minute. Somebody said the one that we did, and you're right, was the Nightingale. That's exactly right. That's the one that we read before. That was hers.
Let's go ahead. Let's rate it real fast. But yeah, Robin had said that her main reason she chose not to read it was reviewed as pretty sad.
Yeah.
Now I would rate this probably like a 5 for me. A 4. Now I have to say, if what's the boy's name? Matthew, if he was not,
if he would have died,
we would be having a burn party right now, ladies. We'd be outside at a
burn
it
down.
We're gonna burn that book, because if we did not have a Disney princess ending, I was out. I was gonna be so out. Like I was actually reading it in the paper, I would have flipped to the end. I would have just like, okay, we're gonna skip whatever lolly da for the next 4 hours, and I wanted to know. I was like, I think I stayed up till like 2 a.m. so I could finish the book because I needed to know. Yeah, Matthew has to wake up.
And see, to me, because somebody in there, I took my glasses off. Somebody in there said that they had, I think Robin Lou said that she had opted not to read this book because she knew that it was going to be sad. And I totally get that. I totally understand that, because now in talking about the rating, as you guys are rating it, I want to say, what is it? We've talked about this before. What is it that how do you rate a book? What is your scale on that rating? And I would agree with you that for me, I give a 5 if it's one that I absolutely cannot put down. Yeah. If it's one that, man, they totally got me in the end and I totally guessed it wrong, or one that I think is unusual and not just your basic Hallmark story. And so for this one, I also would give this one a 5. It was not a happy book. Parts of it were extremely difficult to read, but it absolutely, it's like, why are you talking to me? I want to listen to this.
I know.
I want to hit this
Don't
button
have time
right
for
here.
you.
And I want this
Yeah,
for you.
this is what
You know,
I'm
so
doing.
it's true.
Yeah.
It's true. And those books that you cannot go to bed until you know, I feel like
Yeah.
that is worth a couple of
And a book
couple of
that
buttons.
you think about in the coming days.
Yes.
I felt like I thought about it all the time. I
Yes.
thought about Tom. I
Look
thought
at that.
about,
It's still
Big Marge. And
Yes.
I thought about
Those
all
people.
of those people and, Matthew and Lenny, how their life,
No.
is perfect.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And so I think that so let's look at
5s and 4s. Darlene said a 4 because she really did truly love it, but hated the subject of abuse.
I
It's hard.
totally agree.
Yeah. Kristen Hanna is a super talented writer. She is I always think, like, when I have a 14 or 16 hour listen, I always think, oh, let me just find the time, and when I should best start it to fit my schedule. And I always think, why do I wait for her?
Yeah,
Why do I just always click on anything.
Just do it.
Her words are super good.
And I think too that it is true that the subject matter is very, very difficult. But again, I just want to point out that a lot of the historical fiction books that we read, World War I, World War II, Vietnam, the Civil War. I mean, there's different things that we've read. The subject matter is often difficult. And this is difficult. But I think really well written. Really well written.
And a lot of people were holding on to their breath when she was headed back home to find Matthew. Super great. Let's see. Linda had said it wasn't a happy one, but brought to our attention many issues that happened today.
Yeah.
It was based on reality, really. Even
truly
though it
was.
was based in the 70s into mid-90s, it is something that you still see here.
Talk about that in a minute.
Mary says she's rating it a 3. The writing was excellent, but I found the domestic violence aspect difficult to read. I will not be recommending this one to friends and family, but glad I didn't read this one in January.
Sure. And, that's the other thing too, that for me too, if there's certain things you just have to know for yourself what will knock it down a couple of points for you. And sadness. And, I won't watch a movie that I know I'm going to cry at. I'm not going to do it. And it's funny that I won't give 2 hours for a movie. It's like, oh, now I'm all depressed.
I'm the same way you told me.
But I'll give 10 hours to a book that I'll be depressed about.
Yeah, but Mom, there was a book that you said I should read, and you said, well, it's sad and whatever. I was like, dude, I'm not crying for it. Like, I don't want to ugly cry for no reason. And I do have to say, I think generation is different. For me, I had a very pampered life, no abuse, no veteran war stories. No, my life is pretty sheltered. I mean, moving from Little Podunk and Freda to just Seattle for college was like mind-blowing for this tiny little country girl. So I think it is different also for me, even someone who's my age who may vote it differently and see things differently because they've seen other things. I think that definitely plays a different part. Yeah, you guys growing up in the 70s who remember seeing the things on the news and the, riots.
And that's the other thing too, is that whole conspiracy theory and the whole theories and all of the weird radical stuff, it's almost like coming back around, but we'll talk about that in a second because that's one of the questions.
History repeats itself.
But one other thing about the rating it, for sadness, I 100% agree. And there were tears. I will say,
there were tears.
And I'll say to Brianna, it was a really, really good book, but you'll cry through the whole thing. So, I don't know, because
I've been there.
It's, I always kind of try to hold on. For me, the thing that will immediately mark it down a couple of pegs is if I don't like any of the characters.
That's true. I was invested. I loved a lot of loved the main characters, loved the supporting characters.
A couple that I didn't like. But if there's a book that I, just can't really identify with or like any of them, I'm not interested. I kind of want somebody to root for.
Yeah.
Okay, great. All right. So ratings, are we all good in here? Anybody else that you want to?
Jerry Ann says before we end, she wants to talk about the quill behind us.
Oh,
put it on the notes.
Okay. Okay. Let's see. The next one was, what aspects of the Alaska homesteader lifestyle would you find the most challenging in the wild? And how would you handle the isolation, the interdependence among neighbors, and the climate? And finally, the third part to that question was, would you have what it takes to survive? Now, I think it's kind of interesting because I love Alaska. Love, love, love Alaska. But the funny thing about, and I love the people, my friends that are there, I love those people. I love the nature. I love seeing all those animals. I love all of it. But
she loves running water.
Yes. Yes.
Running water is in.
I have not been there. I have not been to Alaska in the winter time and with all of the darkness. And the other thing, so I love Alaska, but we have a cabin that is up north. And so we always have snow. We go up there for Christmas every year.
Wood burning stove, the whole
wood burning stove. We have to haul in our water. We do have a flushing toilet, which is interesting.
That's been new, though.
That is new. And we have a hot water on demand, so we can take a bath, and we have those sorts of things. And we're kind of roughing it. And I don't know that it's really roughing it.
Robert
but it's not roughing it, but it's lovely. And I love that. And I love being locked up in there for a week at a time with just the fire and some books and food and the dogs. And, that's it. And I love that. I love that week of my life. I think it's just absolutely.
We pray to be snowed in.
We do.
It's never happened, but
we've always been able to make it home
some point.
And so for me, it's hard for me in my head to think, would cabin life, which I love so much, kind of be like that in Alaska? So this book, I think, kind of took some of the romance out of that for me.
It kind of could. I mean, we've got some crazy people in the mountain.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And I think that...
But it might be different if you lived there full time. I mean, we were just vacationers.
And we did know some neighbors up on our mountain, and we would take care of them, so we knew when we were coming, we would bring
and potatoes and
beer, the things that they needed. And so it's okay. But I think it's kind of hard because I have Allison McCullough's Sassy from South Carolina, her notes, and I agree with her. She said that she thinks that the isolation would be very, very difficult, and that having all of those modern conveniences that we have living in a community where we can just go to the grocery store, go get things, and fresh vegetables.
Yeah. And they touched that on Kristen touches that just a little bit from Lenny's
that
point
would
of
be
view.
Hard. Yeah, that would be really hard to be.
And even just going to Anchorage,
like
taking that little jumper plane from where they are in isolation to Anchorage, she said you could go to the movies, get some popcorn, go out with friends, and it's just so a lifetime away. I agree with Darlene. She said she thinks she could survive because she could keep occupied, but the cold would be very hard to adapt to.
And
plus
she says,
and
the darkness. I agree.
I think I could do it. I think
hard.
the darkness would be hard because I struggled even in Seattle, and it's just gloomy, and no sunshine. So
super gloomy.
But I think I could. I like the idea of a the whole compound living where you have all of your family around and we all help each other. I feel like I would totally let wives. I would have wives.
I would love to have a wife.
And a wife to help with my babies.
I would love it.
I would love, having a large Marge who is just gung-ho. Baby, if I need to beat him, I'll beat him for you. Whatever you need. And having Tom, who, yes, he had money, but someone who really could help you do things, take you to the hospital if you needed to, being able to spare no expense for his neighbors because they're important to him, however much they do. So I feel like I would do it. I could do it. I would love to raise my babies like that, just living that way and self-sufficient and learning skills that a lot of us don't know today, how to survive if we got,
if something happened,
dropped in the mountains.
Yeah. I think that that's true. I would believe that every woman really could. I think that women, certainly the women that I know that are in our life, are all very resilient, very strong. And if we had to, we would be fine. And I think for me, if I had to, I could totally do it. 100% I could do it. I'm not so sure I would want to. And I think that that's where
I would be like Cora. I would follow my guy. I would follow Robert wherever.
Yeah.
As long as he knew you have to hunt for me, you have to prep that food, but I will garden, raise the babies, get them more. And Michelle, I totally agree. If I have large Marge in my corner, we could take on the world.
That's exactly right. We all need a large Marge.
Yes.
That's exactly right. Okay, the next question is Lenny and Matthew experience first friendship and first love. I have to say that their relationship and the whole thing was my favorite part of the book.
Yeah,
it
was
truly
very sweet.
Romeo and
Mhm.
Juliet, and very sweet. And what a sweetheart,
Yeah.
Matthew. Gosh, and Lenny, there's so many nuances to that, and her ability to trust. And but anyway.
Mhm.
How did you feel about the relationship as it was growing? Did you root for them, or did you feel that Lenny was taking a terrible risk that would have dark consequences?
I think having that storyline of Lenny and Matthew and young love and all of that, I think it really helped dampen the little bits of abuse that you read throughout. And I think it really had that light of, Lenny's going to make it out, of whatever is happening, she can live down the road and be with, her guy. And I think that helped. And I don't know how I felt. I felt a little bit that it was risky, but at the same time, I felt like she doesn't have anybody, and it's dark and it's winter. And I felt bad that she felt that she couldn't tell him what was happening. Right. The whole true friend. How is he a true friend if I can't tell him?
Right. Well, but you have to keep in mind though, that a child of abuse, there are trust issues, and people in abused families are secret keepers. Mm-hmm. And so, it seems dishonest, but she had to keep a secret, and she was raised that way. And so I think that it was hard. Yeah. I think the other thing that is sort of funny is that it's that definition of love, which I think comes up a lot in Kirsten's books and a lot of books that I read. It seems like that true love, and what would you do for love? And what's the mom's name? Cora. Mm-hmm. As much as like Cora. Yeah. Have a backbone here. Cora loved him. Loved who he was, and before.
Lenny loved her mama.
And Lenny loved her mama. And it's those whole things, those decisions that we make that are not in our best interest because of who we love. Yeah. And I think that was kind of a common theme, through this. But.
And I think it's hard. Like, I know it was super sad that Cora passed away, but I feel like that was the best thing for Lenny, being able to have to let go, because I think it's hard when it was all going down and Cora had to decide, we're leaving, we're going.
It just gives me. I know, I have goosebumps.
In my head, it's like, leave her there, leave her with Tom, leave her with Matthew, and you run, because there is no light at the end of your tunnel. Yes, your parents will have you and love you and keep you safe, but you take her away again and restart again. And she has this, and Cora knows about the love for Matthew, and at that point, the pregnancy. And it's like, I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure I could have said, no, you stay, I'm going to run because I did a really bad thing, and we're just going to protect you that way. But that was so super hard.
Yeah.
Like a lot of tears between the leaving mom and then going
just such
home.
An interesting, I think about that a lot when I'm reading a book like that. It's like, you think, Kristen, what is in your head?
Why?
Now what? We were almost there. We almost did the right thing. And now what the heck are we doing? Yeah. It was such a nail biter.
Yeah, it was.
All right. So here's the question that I think is kind of interesting. So The Great Alone is set in the turbulent world of America in 1970s. And why do you think the author chose this time period? And how did the world at that time, with the political unrest and kidnappings and plane hijackings, factor into the plot? And do you believe the Back to the Earth movement spoke to so many people? Why do you think it spoke to so many people in the 1970s? And why did it speak to Ernst? Okay, so I think that is like a really big question. There's a lot of parts to that, but I think that it's all kind of related. And Kirsten kind of talks about this a little bit, that it's that funny thing that if we're not aware of our history, and if we don't deal with our history has a way of repeating itself.
Yeah.
And back in the 70s, there was a lot of political unrest, right? Half of the country said, why are we going to war? Now you guys are nothing but baby killers. Mm-hmm. And the other half said, of course we have to go help them, and it not only put us at odds with our neighbors, but also those people that came back that gave so much, went as children, 18-year-old fighters that went over and saw horrible, treacherous things. And we already know what they saw because we've read enough of the historical fiction books that we know what went on. And so then they come back and they are damaged. They've got a lot of issues that they have to deal with, and not sleeping and all of that. So that really sets the tone for what happens in his life and the turbulent head that he had. But look at now, and I don't want to have a political conversation. It's not going to happen. Not going to happen. But I just want to say that right now, the political unrest, the, Democrats versus Republicans, and the people that have decided, I'm not going to talk to my family members that voted Republican, or if you voted for Trump and you're my friend, unfriend me, and all of that kind of stuff that's happening, and people that are so divided over something.
Well, and even the division in military.
And
there's some people that, I mean, the same thing. I think that, yes, different in, new aged and how things are said, and AI and news reporting. I think that's a huge thing. I don't know. I mean, in the 70s, if news was so divided.
Well, it was
always it like that?
Well, remember back in the 70s, we had 3 channels.
Oh, that's true. We had
channels.
5 growing
You
up.
couldn't find the news any other way. You had 3 channels, and it's the same then as it is now, that they decide what they're going to tell us.
Right.
And so that was true. So there was this huge mistrust. The same thing is, I think, really is kind of still happening. And so I think that the mistrust that we have towards government, the division that we have in our communities, and it's that same little grassroots thing. I mean, I even was thinking it a little bit. It's like, okay, I have to be able to have a really big garden. I have to raise chickens. I have to have a big, tall fence. And a lot of us that are thinking we have to be able to take care of ourselves. If there is civil unrest, if other things are happening, we have to be able to take care of ourselves and keep our family safe. And it's funny that I also live a fairly charmed life, but I have had those same thoughts that how can I take care of my people, and I think back then it was that same thing. And it makes sense to me that, when you feel like, okay, I don't even know what's happening in the world right now, and there's so much of this going on, I just want to focus on what's mine and how am I going to take care of my people. And so it makes sense to me why all of the stuff that was happening back then, some of the stuff that we're seeing now, where it can kind of divide people.
CJ says it really good. She says it was very divided because people were passionate, and that is true.
Yes.
People are passionate for what they believe in.
Yes.
We just have to find ways to talk to people and care about those with different ideas. I agree. And I totally agree. And the whole social media, what do you guys call it? The ban? What do they do on social media?
The banning?
No, when you decide, like what happened to Paula Deen, because she said
a bad word back in the
60s.
What is that word? They
cancel culture.
Cancel culture.
That we just need to stop being offended and just accept their ideas, and we can tell them ours, and we can agree to disagree. I mean, we learned that when we were little, that me and the boys did not have to get along. We had to agree that, okay, you're going to play with that. I'm going to play with this. Don't touch me.
I don't agree with you.
Stay on your side of the line. But we could get through it. And I agree with CJ that, yes, passionate is a good thing. And not saying that putting your head in the sand and running up to the, Alaska is the greatest idea, but I
can see me doing that.
Oh yeah,
hands up. Fighting. I'm done fighting. And that's the best thing about the cabin is no phone, no internet. You cannot find us. You cannot get a hold of us unless you know where we are.
And you have to drive up to get us.
I like it.
I could definitely do that, and raising my babies the way, and my beliefs and what I think they should learn and how they should learn it. And I think that's where homeschooling is. Like, I wish I had the time and the money, the whatever, to be able to homeschool my kids.
Control
that thing
input.
Because once Wyatt went into kindergarten, it was so different. We talked about, different things about, well, this kid smells funny and his shirt looks raggedy, and mom, can I take him some clothes? And just being able to teach him, like, he did go to daycare, so he saw different things, but not in the same aspect. And we had to talk about, what things happen at other people, and why someone's having a really bad day, and why they were picking on me today but not yesterday. We were just best friends, and having to tell them that you never know what is happening at their house, or if they didn't sleep good, or why they didn't sleep good. And it's hard trying to explain to a 7-year-old that life isn't as easy as his life.
That's right. That's right. And people that have different personalities. Why is that kid mean? Why does that kid talk like that?
Yeah. Why can he say that word and I can't?
That's right. So back to the Earth movement. I think that happens in every generation, and people that, again, I'm done with it. I'm just going to check out of society for a little bit. I think that a lot of those Vietnam vets, of course, they wanted to check out. Yeah. I'm done with you guys. And it makes me sad what they went through, but
me too. Even seeing it, kind of firsthand when Jordan came back, when he came back from Afghanistan, it was eye-opening. His triggers. We knew him enough that we knew some of his tics, just being able to go into a grocery store. He had a hard time just driving in a car through town, even harder going into Walmart, and so just seeing those and not realizing, and he has help, military is so different now than it was in the 70s. And I can only imagine. Yeah.
The PTSD is pretty hard, which is also why I think listening, I did this book on Audible, but with Ernst, understanding that, boy, that man needed help. Sorry, scared her. Sounded like a gunshot.
Scary.
Yeah, sorry, dog's leaving. He needed help. And I think I'm not sure that it was available.
And I think Large Marge was the most maybe level-headed. I mean, she was ready to dig a hole.
Her.
She was ready to dig a hole before anybody else was.
I'm going to do it.
But I think she was smart with her in terms of saying, you know what? You need to go. Here's a job, like going to the oil fields. Just go, do your work, get your mind right. And keeping his mind focused on a task, on a duty, I'm sure is way cleaner than just chopping wood and just in your own head. So I think that was super smart. I feel bad that it didn't last, because I think it would have been a far different story if he maintained that duty. But yeah.
All right. Finally, our question number 5 was, Large Marge tells Cora and Lenny that in Alaska, everyone is either running to something or running away from something. Do you think this is particularly true to wild places like Alaska?
I believe that.
I think that's probably true. I mean, maybe, I think that I could see, I would love to live at the cabin, remote, no internet, limited resources. But I also know for me, I would not be able to live there 12 months out of the year.
Oh yeah.
But I think that getting back to nature, having that peace, people that just, want something that is a little more kinder, gentler, quieter. So I do kind of understand that. And Alaska, oh my gosh, if you've not been,
beautiful. It makes me want to go back after reading this. Knowing the places
Alaska.
She talked about, I think coming back from the cruise. But I'm ready to go back.
Alaska is beautiful. It's so beautiful. We have some friends. Well, I don't know. Are they on here? Chris and Janine. They've lived there for quite some time, and they're moving. I think the end of next year. Is that when they're moving
to Tennessee? People,
Tennessee,
of all places.
Okay, I would love Tennessee also.
Yeah, too. It's gorgeous.
Like
been there.
Bugs
But it's like,
but
that's going to be a
crazy hard
change
for them.
Crazy
all those
change.
People, from a community of 800.
Yeah.
I think
it'll be
really
a far
hard.
Different change.
Yeah, I think
you'll
so
still
too.
have the tourists though. So.
Yeah, but it's why I go back to Alaska every year. Love Alaska. I mean, I think, okay, let's see. And then the other part of this question is, has this been something that's been true of the American pioneer? And how would you compare and contrast the homesteaders in Alaska to the pioneers in early America who came over in covered wagons?
I think it's the same story in different timelines.
I think it is. And I think it's that same idea, not understanding about the climate, not understanding about food and resources,
lack of water.
Of water.
I think it is. I think it's
the elements.
The same story in a different decade.
Different time, different geography, same story. And that whole idea of, and now look, the whole idea of, populating the moon. I'm out. I'm not interested in that. For me, I'm too much of a nature lover. I would not be interested. What was the book that we read? Artemis?
Artemis, yeah.
Oh, I could never live there. Never. Super, super good book. Loved it. But no, not interested. But anyway.
But it's just like we're talking with Chris and Janine, from Alaska to Tennessee, just, going from a different way of life. really. Alaska
Yeah.
being very community ran, small.
Everyone knows
not that they
everyone.
can't find a cute, tiny, small community in Tennessee, but
Well,
there's a
and
lot of people over
resources,
there.
they have to plan because they can come down in Seattle or whatever and shop, and they can get furniture or whatever delivered. And then stuff let's see if I get this right.
It's
Stuff has to
shipped.
be sent to the
A boat.
barge,
Mhm.
and then the barge brings it all up, and then you go down and you get your Costco order or your Amazon packages
It'll
or
be
whatever.
so different.
But super, super different. You've got
Yeah.
to plan ahead, and you have to know.
You're right. And Tennessee has bugs.
Right, has
And
bugs.
bugs that don't die in the winter. Like, I cannot wait for these flies to die.
I know.
I have 2 in my car. How they got in my car, I don't know. But they thaw out every morning.
They
And
thaw
then
out?
they get
Hey,
stickier.
it's spring though. Oh,
It's so bad.
it's spring.
I agree. That's one of the pluses. Is
That's right.
we can have all the bugs you want, and then all can die. And
That's
then
right.
you just repeat the cycle. Yeah.
Oh, see, Judith says PTSD was not even a thing diagnosed. I think you're right.
Yeah.
PTSD was not
Nothing.
something in the 70s. And I think that you're exactly right. I don't think that they got any of the help that they needed because it was sort of like, what, buck up, what's the big deal?
Yeah.
And that's
Mhm.
exactly right. Yeah. Yeah. Thank God that they've fixed that.
Yeah. And Mary says it right. Lenny and her family clearly had no idea what they were in for.
No.
I totally agree. They were just going to Freeland and to get out. They didn't know what they didn't know. Right. I agree. And they were just lucky enough to be in this small community that knew.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that definitely pays off.
Yeah.
And a community that came with open arms, knowing you're an outsider with this bug, this, van, where you in that van, you don't know what a chainsaw is,
Yeah.
I think just a community who is willing to
Help them.
take the time to build shelters, to build coops, to give them goats, and not, expect you to just, help me can when I'm going to can my jam and
Right.
Cora having none of those skills before,
Right.
Right. I think it sounds.
It was a good book.
Yeah, I thought. Yeah, you
A good
had
book.
every emotion.
Hard to read.
Yeah,
Hard to read. I don't know that we went through all of the spoilers, but I suppose we mentioned most of them.
it's a good read.
But what I would say is stick with it, because some
Mhm.
of it, you'll get to some parts where it's like, oh, this is really hard to read. And, and
Mhm.
Ernst, of course, does not survive the book.
Mhm.
Cora doesn't either, but in a whole different way, of course.
Yeah.
And so really the story ends with the whole Romeo and Juliet story and what happens with them at the
and
end.
it
And it
was-
ends beautiful.
Again, it ends the right way.
It does. It ends the
Because
right
again,
way.
we would be outside burning it right now if it didn't. I was I'm to too hard. No, I have to know. If I had it in paper, I would already know. I would have flipped to the end to even know if I should just keep reading it. So
I know.
I was very happy with that. And I think it's I think Kristen really, as an author and how good she is, definitely does really weigh all of those emotions together. And maybe she knew, and having it a tiny bit of her personal life being picked up and gone to find, refuge somewhere else. I think, and maybe it's the end of story. Maybe, Lenny and Matthew are a little bit about her and her mister, having this fairy tale life, and I wouldn't have it any other way. So you never know. So I was super happy how it ended. So yeah, a 5-star. I would recommend it. Letting people know that it's
hard read.
There's a little bit of abuse. There's a little bit of crying, but you have good emotions, and that you have all of it.
And I think it's good to warn people about that. Just like, oh, this was a really good book, but it was World War I. So, you kind of know. Or it was a really good book, but, it was about this.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Good.
I really liked it. I liked it, but it was a hard read. I told Rose when she said, oh, it was, she said, I just found the book to be sad. I heard you say that once, that you liked the book to be entertaining, and I didn't find this to be true of this book because I did not enjoy the abuse parts. And in the end, he got what he deserved, and that was true. I agree with that. And I told her, I says, yeah, people will agree with that, but
because Cora really wasn't. I think she played a big part as a character in the book. She definitely wasn't on my top 5. Not being able, but I can respect a love so hard, knowing someone before and during, and her thing is like, it's just because, it's like him having cancer. We just have to stick with him until he's healthy, not realizing what he needed.
Maybe
wasn't
this
love.
will fix him. Maybe this will fix him.
He needed
I
Yeah,
understand.
I
it.
get that. And
Yeah.
I think when she finally decided when to pull the trigger, and set her and Lenny free, I think that was the part, like, that is what you shouldn't have done that, but you needed to make this separation a whole lot sooner than you did.
Mm-hmm.
And to know that her parents believed that from the get-go when she was a young mother and her love was off to war, that their parents from the very get-go said, this is not going to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to go that far. Do not go there. Do not. I'll give you money, but you need to not do this. And every time taking her back and make it right. Yeah. I'm glad she had that support system. Not everyone does, and not everybody can keep that support. And I was glad she had that.
Mm-hmm. And I think too, again, it's that whole idea of books that you just can't get out of your head.
Yeah, this is one.
The books that, you just, those people kind of come back to you a lot and you think about them a lot. And Kirsten has a way of doing that.
She does.
Nightingale, the women, this book, she's got she's good at storytelling, which I think is really good.
And Lynette made a good point that she was thankful that Matthew wasn't angry of his situation and did not become inert. I totally agree.
That's right.
The way, his accident, the years of rehabilitation, where he is, and this is what he is accepting. I 100% agree. His acceptance of this is it. And just being so ecstatic that this girl of his dreams came back, not realizing, if it was ever going to happen. I agree. Mm-hmm. I think that was perfect, full ending, that not every bad thing has to end bad.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's good.
And all then what were some of the other books? I totally cannot remember. What were the other books that were this month that we maybe read and maybe didn't read? And because again, each month what happens is we have 4 that we choose from. And we go based on voting. And this was what everybody voted on, was The Great Alone. And then what were our other 3?
Let me open. Oh, from last one?
Mm-hmm.
Let me open the Rat newsletter.
The Great Alone.
The Great Alone, The Lost Apothecary.
Oh, that one was good. The Lost Apothecary. I did read that. It was actually really good. Interesting. 1600s kind of thing.
And medicinal, right?
Medicinal. Women that, a woman in particular that could come up with concoctions, to treat women. And then something happens and it turns into, she could help you murder your husband. And then
Belladonna. We all know what that is.
And it's an interesting storytelling because it goes back and forth between this woman back in the 1600s and then a woman today who is going through issues with her husband and finds a vial that belonged to this woman, and the stories kind of parallel and they find each other. And anyway, it was a good book. It was interesting. I learned a few things. I liked the way the book was written. It was unusual. Mm-hmm. It was good. I liked it.
The Unhoneymooners. Even Robert just said that it was bust out laughing great.
The Unhoneymooners.
It would be a good one to read.
Yes.
Get The Great Alone, cleanse your palate, and do happy tears and lots of laughter.
It was very, very good. It was very, very good. It wasn't your typical
yeah, Mom, you described it as like a Hallmark movie. It was totally predictable, but
it was good. It was funny. Yeah, it was good.
And then Codename Helen.
Codename Helene.
Helene.
Very, very good.
Historical fiction.
And that was another historical fiction, hard one. I was surprised that one wasn't the one that you guys picked. You guys voted.
It was very close. Mm-hmm. It was very close.
Very, very good. And then what is it this month?
This month we're actually reading All the Colors of the Dark by Chris Whitaker. But the other 3 titles you were able to vote from was Before We Were Yours, another historical fiction.
I
want to read it. I think that was when you were telling me that there's tears. But I think it's okay. I want to say the word fascinating that's not the right word, but
I'm going to tell you. So I'm going to tell you about this one. So it wasn't the one that was voted on, right?
No, we're not reading this one.
Okay. You need to read it. But here's the thing that you need to know. It is historical fiction. This is a real story about a real person who back in the it was during the Depression, and this woman, I can't think of her name, but she was the one who supposedly turned around
Georgia, Memphis-based adoption organization.
Yes, that she turned around and made sure that all of these babies found homes, and really did this great thing. She had all these accolades. I mean, even met with
some people are reading it right now, so
Roosevelt.
don't spoil it.
I won't spoil it. But it's hard to read because it is a true story, and there were things that happened. And you're following, that this person has something to do with this, and you're trying to figure out, and you don't know till the very end who everybody is, but it's very, very, very good. And so it's fiction. This particular story is fiction, but it is real,
based on
historical events, that woman is known as probably is believed to have been one of the most prolific serial killers of our time, responsible for probably the deaths of over 500 children.
The little synopsis on the newsletter said, based on one of America's most notorious real-life scandals in which Georgia Tan, director of a Memphis-based adoption organization, kidnapped and sold poor children to wealthy families all over the country. Yeah. Lisa Wingate's riveting, retching, and ultimately uplifting tale reminds us how even through the paths we take, we can lead to many places. The heart never forgets where we belong. So I just think it's
beautiful. Oh, see, look at it. Look at my hair.
How one gets away with that.
But so you should. It's one of those World War II, World War I historical fiction things you just need to know. I would have never ever known that kind of thing happened.
Even the
hard to read.
The Tattooist of Auschwitz. I read that one, and it's the amount of things I did not know. Even just from basic U.S. history. Yeah. And so there's things that I feel like I need to just be educated. Yeah. I know, there's a little flip of fiction, but there's enough history in it that you're learning things. You're,
They told in this book, there were things that were factual, parallel. The only thing is the name of the characters that is all made up, but the rest of it is all real. And it's one of those that as soon as you finish it, you want to find something really good to read. Really, cleansing, because
something McKay Andrews, Judith says she always writes out loud laughter reads. So add a McKay Andrews for after you read this one.
Good.
There's also A Crocodile on the Sandbank by Elizabeth Peters.
A young adult read.
All the Colors of the Dark, and then No Exit. No Exit was by like 2 points.
Have I read No Exit?
Maybe.
That just not sound familiar to me.
Darby Thorne, a college student stranded in a blizzard at a highway rest stop in the middle of nowhere. She's on the way home and sees her sick mother. She'll have to spend the night at the rest stop with 4 complete strangers. Then she stumbles across a little girl locked inside one of their parked cars. There is no cell phone reception, no telephone, no way out because of the snow. She doesn't know which one of the other travelers is the kidnapper. Who is this little girl? Why has she been taken? And how can Darby save her? Full of shocking twists and turns, there's a beautifully written novel will have you at the edge of your seat.
Fun. I have not yet read that one. Let me see. It must be in my... I know, because I always put them all in.
Darlene has read No Exit. It was a really great read.
Oh, I still have it in my queue. And that's what happens a lot, is that sometimes what'll happen is I can get it right away, and sometimes it's 14 weeks or 9 weeks or whatever. So I haven't read it yet. So hopefully before we.
So this read. So after you finish The Great Alone, if you haven't already, the next read we're doing is All the Colors of the Dark by Chris Whittaker.
So good. So good.
Yes.
It's a book about love.
And it's also proclaimed as the #1 thriller mystery of 2024 by the Boston Globes.
All the Colors of the Dark?
Yeah. A soaring thriller and an epic love story. Whoever writes these newsletters are.
And I'll tell you what, it also will have they call it trigger warnings.
Most thriller and suspense do.
It's a serial killer kidnapping young girls. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's and it's hard to read, but that whole underlying the amount of love that he has for her and she has for him and she has for, it's really, to me, the whole book when I finished it. And I think that was the book that after I finished it, I didn't read anything for like 3 days. It's like, I just want to keep thinking about it because that amount of absolute, unconditional, constant love, dedication, no matter what.
Mhm.
So many characters. I loved every character in that book. Every character. It was good. It was good. You'll like it. I hope.
If not, we'll find out.
If not, well, that's okay. It won't hurt my feelings. You know, I think that that's okay. It's okay for us all to have different ideas about what is a good book and what makes it a bad book.
Yeah. That makes us all our own people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's okay.
CJ is just now reading The Diamond Eye. God, I loved that book.
That was so
Again,
good.
I'm all about a strong woman, let me tell you what. And
Yes,
she loved her.
so good.
It's amazing. And the things I did not know.
Yeah.
Again,
Yeah.
U.S. history. There's pieces missing.
Yeah.
Granted, I know you only have so much to teach the kids all of this history, but there was some, I think, very pivotal information that we learned in that book that people don't know about. I didn't know.
We have about 4 minutes left. Tell us, what else are you guys reading right now? The Book of Lost Friends by Lisa. By Lisa Wingate. Lisa Wingate.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody else read No Exit. Go ahead while we have a few minutes.
Oh, a lot of people have been reading Remarkably Bright Creatures by Shelby Van Pelt. It's amazing. It's
okay, but now I just have to ask, and this is one of those things that, spoiler alerts, it's the same thing with movies. If I know that the dog dies, if I know that, you know, the child dies or whatever, I don't want to watch it. So Remarkably Bright Creatures is about
an octopus.
An octopus who dies, right?
I don't know. I haven't read it.
I think he dies.
Well, I mean,
I kind of feel
life
like
happens.
See, for me,
if it's an animal, no. If it's a serial killer,
a
max murder,
I'm okay with that. Wait, kill my husband.
Sign me up.
Ooh, what happened then?
What'd he do?
Oh my God. I know. I know. What is it wrong with me?
People know the dog. Save the dog.
I know.
Yeah.
Don't kill the animals. Kill the people. Don't kill the animals. I'm sorry. Don't quote me on that.
CJ says it has a good ending.
It does.
Well, talk to CJ. CJ, she's gonna text you.
Okay.
She needs.
It's supposed to be a good book, and everybody says that, but
and now isn't it like on Netflix? It's a movie too, or documentary
that I would not watch because there is something about
Scrappy Quilter says Cindi, read it. It's really good. Okay, so if you've read it and you have mom's information, she needs She needs the spoilers.
I need to know if the animal dies.
Because, I mean, when we were kids and we left for school, because we left for school before her, we would tell her to take an alternate route. If a cat or a dog or somebody was on the side of the road, we would tell mom to
don't go that way.
Go 9 and just take the extra 5 minutes.
And I knew why. I didn't need to know any details. I just knew to go a different direction. And I don't know why I'm like that. It's stupid to be like that, but I can't help it. It's just the way that it is.
It's the animal. She can't take it.
I can't take it.
Yeah. Quilt behind us real fast. Oh, yeah. This. This is a pineapple quilt. A pineapple quilt put on point. This was made for me by Amy.
Amy Osmondson.
Yeah. And it's in my office. So it just makes me happy. But, yeah. So do I sit back here? Yeah. It has a very plush minky back, so it makes me happy enough that I'm not snuggling with it. But I do have a couch over there, so if I get super tired, I could just, take a minute.
Snap it off.
Put the blinds down, shut the door.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Do we have a video on pineapple quilts?
I don't know if we do. That might be a good one to do. I love a good pineapple quilt. I'm definitely a fan of Scrappy. Not that I don't. I love the coloration part, but the amount of time I have to quilt, I prefer just to be able to get ready to sew and then not have to reset myself up knowing I'm doing orange and pink and not, pick it from the pile.
I do know that we have like a free pattern that we have given out many, many times. And I think it's called Simple Pineapple or something. In your next order, just say, hey, Tracy, put that in there. I will print some off and I'll bring them in for her.
Yeah.
You make myself a note to do it.
Yeah.
And we'll give you a little pattern on. There's a super easy way to do it. No cutting. Well, I don't want to say it's no cutting, but it's done differently.
A pineapple quilt, I would say, is probably an intermediate technique. You need to be comfortable cutting because there's a little bit of squaring up. So your strips don't have to be awesome, but you have to be comfortable with a ruler and your rotary cutter for sure. All right. I had fun this time, guys.
I did too.
Yeah. It was a bummer. Marjorie was going to come and get it, but she had a kind of impromptu physical therapy or something. So she missed it. But totally be talking behind the scenes with Marjorie.
I know.
Because I feel like it's a generational thing, and I think Marjorie will have a totally different view on it.
She might.
Not. I mean, I think we're all kind of the same views on things, but I think she'll think of things differently. Things that
the 70s
touch
for
her
her
different.
were very different than the 70s for me, and the 70s for
I didn't even know
was
about
10.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you were nowhere.
So I am intrigued to talk to Marjorie about it. All right.
Anything else?
All right. I think we're good.
The Family Remains. Okay, it was really good, but there's another one that is in front of it, which The Family Remains.
The Family Remains is like the sequel?
The Family Remains. I started with that one, but it's the second one. The first one is, I just finished it.
Linda said, spoiler alert. They think everything is easy. She's conferring to arts and quilting.
Yes.
Sometimes it is.
Yes.
Linda, it'll take you more than 5 minutes.
Sorry, let me go back. How do I find my history?
The Family Remains is the second book?
It is the second book. Which you wouldn't know that.
Under your tags, I think is what it is. There you go. Is it a standalone second book?
You totally could. You totally could read it borrowed. The Family Upstairs.
The Family Upstairs.
The Family Upstairs is the first one. So, but The Family Remains very, very, very good. Very, very good. But if you found that you had weird questions about, I feel like I missed something. Where did that come from? It is the second book. The Family Upstairs is the first book. The only way that I know that is because I was listening to The Family Upstairs, because of course that's Lisa Jewell. She's the one that I have 3 books right now in my queue because I love her. And I thought, wait, have I read this before? Wait, I know that name. Wait, okay, he's going to say right now, yes, he did say that. What happened? And then I had to look it up and I thought, did I watch a movie? How do I know this? And then I went down this whole weird deep dive. It took forever to figure it all out, but The Family Upstairs is the first book. The Family Remains is the second book. So just FYI.
Good to know. I find that that's sometimes hard to see. Is this a series? Is this a part 2? Is this a standalone? Because there are so many books, that you read that it's like the same story. Yeah. They just change the characters a little bit, the place where that. It's like, I don't. Yeah. So if it's a standalone in a series, I'm going to read one and I got the other. I have the others figured out.
That's exactly what I'm actually going to say is that The Family Remains was super, super good. If you go now and read or listen to The Family Upstairs, it's not going to be that great. You already know what happened. You already know because they're just giving you the backstory. So you already know who Sylvia is. You already know what was the other guy's name? You already know what happened. And so they're just giving you the backstory of, what happened early on. So it's not going to be your favorite because
there's no suspense
there's no suspense. You're not going, ooh, I wonder what happens next. I already know what happens. This must be, oh yes, of course. That's when
that makes sense.
That kid's name. Anyway. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, I'm not going to, if you've already listened to The Family Remains, Family Upstairs, not so great.
Sure.
Right. Okay, now I think we've overstayed our welcome.
Awesome. It was fun. I enjoyed it. It was good. I think it was a book, though, that it's a good book. Let's talk about.
Yeah.
It was a 16-hour listen, so.
I know. It was a Chris and Hannah.
It was she's worth it. So if you are still in the middle reading it, it is worth, get it to the end. Even if you are reading it paperback, you need to skip a chapter or two, you're probably going to be okay. Yeah. You'll catch up. She writes really, really well, but it is worth finishing it. All right. And then we will see you
Wednesday morning.
Yeah, we'll see Fabric Chat.
We'll see you for box opening. And then we'll see you next month for another book review.
Yes. All right. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys. All right.